Greetings and welcome to Office Hours with Dr. G. I'm your host, Dr. G, and I'm so glad you could keep our appointment. Now, tonight's guest is no stranger to Office Hours with Dr. G, nor is she a stranger to many of you. She is Prime Minister Grand Sheikess Durriyyah Bey.
That's me.
She's the eldest of 7 children, and she was born into Moorish signs, and she said it wasn't easy for her. However, with the assistance of aunts and uncles, cousins, and 3 wonderful children and grandchildren, she has managed to keep it all together. Her lineage spans 4 generations from her great-grandmother, Sidney Travis Bey, to her grandmother, Julia Travis Ford Bey, who married James Ford Bey, to her father, Leon Ford Bey, a.k.a. Ali Bey, who recently transitioned. Prime Minister Grand Sheikess Durriyyah Bey is a graduate of Rutgers University. She has been in education for over 40 years since then. Her qualifications range from early childhood development and education, which includes daycare, through college. She also has a vast medical background in cardiovascular technology, neurophysiology, and sleep medicine, and Moorish science, law, and history. She is best known for her extensive knowledge of Moorish science as taught by Prophet Noble Dwali and her great-uncle Isaac Travis Bey, who was the imam of the family. She started the Moorish science with GSKS Durriyyah Bey Blog Talk program in 2012, which includes Sunday School for Children and Adults, Wednesday Real Moorish Talk, and Friday Holy Meetings. Prime Minister is founder and head instructor of online schooling for Moorish Children, which was opened and established on September 8, 2015. The school provides strong quality education for the upliftment of our youth. The school's motto is educating our children's minds to excellence. Prime Minister Grand Sheikess Durriyyah Bey is an innovative, creative, and strong-willed force of humanity who is dedicated to the cause of uplifting our nation out of the downtrodden conditions and back to a stable condition that comes through our children who are our future. Now tonight, she is going to be discussing protecting your property, your children. Let's welcome to Office Hours with Dr. G, Prime Minister Grand Sheikess Durriyyah Bey. Welcome.
Islam, welcome. Thank you, Islam. It's good to be here again, Islam.
Yes. It's good to have you back. Let me just put this on mute, on mute, because I have one of those phones that rings all the time if you don't mute it. So, how are you?
I am great. And with my phones, I just told Shamsuddin just take them out of the office. That way I don't hear any ringing at all.
Well, I put my little information on there that I have to share. And well, thank you so much for coming back to the show, because I know that there is some information that you want to share with our community, because there's so much going on and so many calls that you've been getting with regards to the subject matter at hand, that there's I just don't realize, I don't know why it appears to be an increased or heightened incidences of what you're going to be talking about. But there, it probably ties into some other agenda, which, again, you get lots of calls, you being the head of the online Moorish schooling for children. And so a lot of parents, they're even, I know for a fact there are some parents that are fighting the jurisdictional issues of where, whatever jurisdiction they domicile in and around, that maybe doesn't even want their children to allow the children to even attend school. So tell us a little bit, though, for those who don't know you, and I'm pretty sure there's very few that don't, but give us a little bit before we get into it. I was thinking, before we get into the subject matter, let's tell us a little bit more about Prime Minister Grand Sheikess Durriyyah Bey.
All right. So, other than last time, as you had stated earlier, I was born and raised in Moorish Science, and so I have a very proud lineage in Moorish Science. I'm so excited about my family lineage in Moorish Science. But one of the things in our whole family is I found out that my grandmother also was an educator. So yeah, I found it out through my father telling me that she also taught taught children, and she taught Sunday school. So I love that. But me being born and raised in more science, and my father, was one of those ones who, if you decided to go the way you wanted to go, he wasn't really one to be forceful about it. So it came from a lot of questions that I asked. I asked him a lot of questions because I wanted a lot of answers. I'm still that way today. And so that's how I wind up on my journey, learning more about myself. My grandmother is very, 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 very beautiful woman. She said to me, anything that you want to know, we'll answer your questions, but we send everyone to Uncle Ike. And so that's where my journey began, with more information, because I was telling people about who I was, and, not being Negro, Black, and colored, and having a best friend who was nationally conscious. Her name was Sarah. She was so conscious and so, I just couldn't. She admired being who she was. Of course, she called herself Puerto Rican. We know today that they're Moors, but she loved who she was. I mean, her holidays, the pride. And so I found someone who was prideful like me, but she was, of course, a lot lighter than I was in melon. So I had to learn more about melanation and those things like that. So in my journey through school, I fought a lot. I fought a lot about who I was, my heritage, who I am, not being Black, not being Negro and colored, not celebrating the holidays. All of those things was a fight for me coming up as a child. The one thing I did have was support of my family, though. I remember my grandmother, my mother's mother, used to send us to church on Sundays. She was Catholic. And she would say, if you don't go to Sunday school, you got to get out of my house. I don't care what you are. So she would make us go to the church on Sunday, which I never see my mother's mother go to church, not one day of my living life. But anyway, when we were in there, I remember the nuns being dressed. I used to say they look just like Muslim women. They look like Muslim women. They dressed in kamars and hijabs. I was like, I thought in a little while, I thought I was home. And so they brought me this rosary cross. And I was like, I'm not doing that. We have rosary beads, but not crosses on them. So I was familiar with the rosary beads. So then I started putting the science together that they were stealing a lot of the things they were making you think came from the Catholic Church. It literally came from more science. So you can see where my journey started very early in my life, because I started asking questions to the people that call themselves priests, to the nuns, asking them where did they get our stuff from, and how they were calling, why. I even asked about the pale man being on a cross. Why you got this great big man up in here on a cross? You representing death and all those things. So I got in a lot of trouble when I was very little. My grandmother used to say, why you go down there to that church and give them people a hard time, and then they calling me. But, she would send me every Sunday. And then finally she decided to start sending me something with my godmother, who was a 7-day Adventist. So I was really learning a lot about different information. And in 7-day Adventist, I learned that Sabbath was Saturday, and my grandmother was vegan. She didn't eat any dairy product or anything like that. So my godmother, she was really someone I could communicate with a little better. And so I learned about 7-day Adventist, and I was telling her I never want to be a 7-day Adventist. I just want to stay who I am. But I learned a lot about religion. So that led me on my journey to learn a lot more about who I was, my pride. And one of the things I did tell my godmother was, in the 7-day Adventist, they're not teaching you about nationality and birthrights. Like literally, they're not teaching you the truth about God and, all those things. And so when I started telling my godmother that, she started looking into what I was into at that time. She was like, a child is telling me these things, I'm going to look into it. And so she started looking into it, and she started investigating and studying with me. So I learned my Holy Quran and my 101s with my godmother. She wanted to know how I got this information and who gave it to me. And from that point on, I really got closely attached to her. And then, when she moved away, I didn't have anyone else still. It was by myself all over again. So my uncle, who was very, very in my family, I love him. I miss my uncle so much. I started going to him and sitting at his house and learning. And that's how I started on my journey to really getting to understand and comprehend who I really was and how powerful the information that I had. Because as a child, I felt like maybe as a child I was being a little boastful, because I knew the information, but I still didn't have all of the comprehension of what it was. But as I started learning how important this really was and that I needed to be able to explain it to people, and that's what I teach the children, because you can say a lot of things, but you have to be able to explain the information. You have to give people a comprehension of what you're talking about. So if I'm saying I'm not Negro, Black, and colored, what does that mean? You know, and then I always remember when I was very young, my grandmother used to tell us about Christmas. She said, the prophet said he's taking something away from us, but he's putting something in place of it. So all of my life now, anything that I've ever taken away, I always replace it with something of value, of course, because that way people don't feel like they miss out, you know. So those are just some very early lessons that I learned, you know, so just so proudful of who we are and where we came from and my family. And I'm just so excited that we're still walking in that light and that my children and grandchildren are walking in that light too. So it's just very fortunate for me. I live a very exciting, happy life this way. I'm very, very upbeat and positive about my life all the time. You know, I don't really find any downloads or anything negative to have because I'm not being lied to anymore. I mean, people are still lying, but when you know the truth, it makes a big difference. So, but that's a little bit about me. My journey continues. I was talking to a sister the other night, and I told her that my journey in this life until I leave here is always going to be about more science. It's always going to be about who we are and what I can do to uplift all humanity. That is my mission. That is my goal. That's all I want to do. And if you're not talking upliftment for all humanity, if you're not talking about making us a betterment of people, if you're not talking about changing your very conditions, I'm not interested. Like literally, I don't have a conversation for you. I don't want to gossip if it's not about more science. I don't want to talk about it if it's not about more science, because we as a people cannot afford in this era of time to talk about anything else but nationality and birthright. And now, of course, that comes with the law, which we're going to talk about today, and things that we just don't know, because unfortunately, some of us are coming into this organization and we're happy, we're learning, we're motivated when we find out that, you know, we're not Negro, Black, and color. You wake up, oh my God, you know, you find out you have a real profit, a real religion, a real status, but then where else does it go? A lot of people are stuck because they don't know the law, or they have people who are misleading them and misguiding them in the wrong direction. And I don't know if it's intentionally or just misguided information, but we have to start somewhere and say enough is enough with the falseness and confusion, and let's move forward to the truth, because we're waking up now. And you know, this European is trying to put us back in slavery. And whether we realize it or not, when they make America great again, what they was talking about is when they had us in shackles. To them, that's when America was great. When they were controlling the mindset of the people, that's to them was great. So now we have to say all the information, all the Moors that are awake now, what are we going to do about changing our very condition? And this comes right now through our schooling, through the educational process, through law. We have to do better for our babies. Absolutely, we have to do better.
Speaking of babies, I was thinking to myself, now you and I around the same era. I'm probably a few years older than you, but we're still around the same era. And I had no idea until I was 56, maybe, that I was not African American, or that, you know, I didn't have any sense of alarm at the fact that the nationalities had changed over the years. You know, we were the colored people, the Negro people, the Black people, the African American people, and now you can kind of be any people you want to be. But I was angry at the fact that you know, had been no missionary work in my area, not era, but in the area where I domiciled, who knocked on the doors and told us who we were. So my grandmother didn't go to church. My grandmother had one of those houses where people came and they played cards, and you know, the number guy was always there, and you know, probably little other things went on, but I was kept away from that part. But she sent me to church. She sent me to the Baptist church. So for me, she didn't go, but they sent me to Sunday school. You know, there was always something, I guess, in every generation that, you know, like we got at least open, you know, give them that opportunity to make a decision for themselves. And I went until I was old enough to say I'm not going anymore. And then they left me alone. Nobody bothered me because nobody else went. The only time we went to church was when somebody transitioned. But I was angry at 56, or maybe a little older than that, just to realize, because when I first found out about it, it didn't even register that I had missed out on all those years of not knowing my true nationality and my true birthright, and then nobody around me seemed to know. And that if I saw anyone now, I probably could count on one hand the number of times I saw turbans and fezzes, you know what I mean. And if I did, I remember there was probably I was in my 30s or maybe 30s or so, maybe even in latest 40s, but definitely by the time I was like 30 something, I remember some people that wore fezzes and turbans, and they were calling them sort of like Hebrew somethings, or they weren't necessarily Hebrew Israelite, but it was something like had something to do with like more like the Hebrew faith. But they were they wore turbans and whatever, and I was like, I'm gonna be a part of that. You know what I mean? So you see things that are turn off, and you when you've already grown up in society where you're modeling the latest fashions, you're following all that, you're doing this, then you go, in order to go there or do this, I gotta do this, do that, I gotta change the way I dress, I gotta change the way I think, I gotta change the way I talk. And by the time you're older, you're like, I don't want to do that. But if you train up a child, it says in the way that they should go, that when they're old, they don't depart from it. So you had the benefit of being trained up, even though you were sent to these other religious institutes. You still had a foundation of who you really were, more science. Now I'm interested to know that on the birth record or birth certificate, instead of Negro or colored or African American with you, did it say that you were more? Or were you born in a family where it was just put in the Bible? Because some people, they just put the records in the Bible, so put what you want. So what were you? Was your nationality correct on your birth?
It was put in the Quran. We used to keep records in our Quran, the universal Qurans. Yes, we have records in there. And as far as a birth certificate, I've never even used a birth certificate for anything ever. So what I have is called a baptism certificate that my uncle Ike administered to me when I started on my journey, and I still have it, where it said that the terms of black and I think it says black or Negro. I have to look at black or Negro is removed, and the true origin of the child is Asiatic. And I still have those. I still use those same records today. The same records that my uncle used, I just updated them and used them today. So by him being the patriarch of our family, he kept a lot of our records and things done for us, for our family. Now, there was a tear between my mother and my father. My mother was born, like I said, my grandmother, her mother was Catholic. And my father, of course, was, raised as Moorish. And so there was a conflict of religion and name and all of those type things. And so even of birth, of when you were born. I recently found out that I was born in a different year than I thought. It came from the conflict of the two not really connecting, and so not being evenly yoked, so those type things. But I've never had to use the black or African American on anything, like anything. Even recently, when I got a citation from these policy enforcers enforcing my right to travel, I had to send in a documentation correcting the information on there saying that my race was black, because no one ever asked me what my race was. They just assumed. And of course, we know that we're not known by race. Race is our human race. It's the human race. That is who we actually are. It's human. And then if you're asking me my origin, of course, is Asiatic. And then my nationality would be Moorish. And so I think a lot of people still get that confused. I know a lot of Moors coming in, they believe that their origin is the same as race, and that's not true. It is your origin is who you are by, you're Asiatic by origin, but you're a human by race. You are of the human species. And so you can just put that. And I think I shared one time when I was on the show before, where I had a professor who came into my job working as a nurse. We were doing some sleep studies, and we were doing some neurophysiology on him because he was having some type of neural pathways signaling or something to that effect. And so what we did was he filled out the application. I'll never forget, I was short staffed that day. He came in there and he brought his application in. And when I read it over, when it said race, he had wrote human. He wrote HUE-MAN. And so I didn't even say anything about it. I just looked and smiled. So then he said, that didn't bother you? He was very surprised. When I said race, I said human. I said, are you not human? And he was like, oh, yes. He said, but most people questioned. I said, well, that's because most people are not conscious to the information you're putting on this record. But I know that that means you're saying you're part of the human race. You have a hue, man, and you're part of the human race. And he goes, right, absolutely. So then he, of course, he was interested in speaking with me. But he thought he was going to shock me or surprise me.
No, was he Asiatic?
He was Asiatic, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. And see, that's the thing. He was Asiatic. So he said human, H-U-E. I don't think a European would have wrote H-U-E-MAN because they don't have hue. So I don't think if they wrote it, it would not have been with an E, you know. So he was specifically letting me know. This lets me know that those people who are up in the upper ranks, that, you know, in sciences and, you know, historical information, legacy, that they know who they are. But it's more comfortable calling us those things that allude to slavery because they're, you know, expressing it or trying to stay politically correct with the government or whatever, and they're afraid to tell the truth. You know, and just like I really love Roland Martin on Field. I love Roland Martin. So of course, anytime he had a new show, I followed him. But one of the things I was saying recently to Sheikh Bilal is that he always talk about unfiltered. So when something's unfiltered, you're supposed to be raw. You're supposed to give it, you know, like it is, right? But he does not do that because there's only certain things he will not cover or say. To me, that's not unfiltered. You can't call yourself unfiltered if you're not going to be willing to let all of it come out. Spread the information too, or you can't call yourself unfiltered, you know. So, but those are just some of the things, you know. We have a constant fight, you know, as being melanated. We have a constant fight. I was talking to a group of Moors last week, and I was telling them that a lot of things, you know, we have these words that go around, like people are saying echo these days, and they're saying synergy and energy. You know, our people are really good for picking up what they think is the latest trend of something. So I was telling them what we need to start telling the people, because they have a hard time associating with Asiatic because they don't see themselves as the original people. But if you say to them melanated, it clicks. Because melon, okay, I can associate with that. And then looking up melanated means that you have a big pigment, right, complexion. And then let them know that yes, you're melanated because you're Asiatic, you're from the original people. You are the origin. You are the original man and woman. And so that seems to be really picking up today with our people. It's using the term melanated, because I'm telling you, anything is better than that black, you know, and that African American. And now people say, well, Prime Minister, why aren't we African American? Let me just share that really quickly. We are African descent. We're not African American because Africa and America are two continents. And in each continent, you have to belong to a nation. There's nations in America. There's nations in Africa. You are not two continents. So you have to be related to one continent, and the other one represents your legacy, your lineage, where you're from. So you would be a descendant of Africans because that is the new term for Africa, but we know that's a new word for Africa. That's not the original term, but you would be only descendants of Africans, but you will not be Africans and American both. You will have to be African descent and then, you know, be American born, but in Africa, what nation are you from? So you would be descendants of Africans and born in America. You cannot be an African American. And so that is a big misconception, but that European will do anything to keep you from finding out who you really are. When you start telling him that your origin is Asiatic and that you are Moorish, they're going to fight you. And even recently, my cousin Sheikess Makita was telling me that they now trying to say that Moors don't exist. They now trying to write Moors out of the history, saying, oh, that's a made up term, or it's a derogatory term, but it means something auspicious. You know, they're trying to take the word Moor now and make it to something horrible because they realize that the people are waking up to who they really are. And so you have to really be careful with everything that they put out there and say. You have to do your own research, and you have to do an investigation. And Google is not research. Google is a search engine. It is not research. You have to actually get out there, my people, my lovely people, and actually do the research. Get some old books, some historical information, and get out and really look for your lineage and research information. There's a lot of books out there that you can find, old books, to help you identify with who you are.
Yeah, that's funny how they would all of a sudden try to, and not funny. It stands to reason, like you said, because so many Moors are waking up to the truth of who they are, that they would, now try to do a disinformation campaign to say that Moors don't exist. But you got movies that you all put out where you got the word Moor in there. You got the Black Knight, and you've got other movies, but we can always remember the Black Knight. But that, that actually has the term Moor. So if it existed then it's not made up now. And at the time you were talking about a melanated man, that was the reference. So, that it's just that everyone hasn't seen the truth. I wonder, and what, when I'm in my thought process, I wonder what it would take, and if what's going on now is going to be a catalyst to help, what it would take to get the masses of us to listen to the fact and hear the truth about who they are. What is the current climate of the last 2 years almost of what we've gone through? Is that enough, to maybe get the ear of those who heretofore didn't want to hear anything about what we're talking about? Or do you think there actually has to be, because they're talking about, store up 90 days or more of food and water, and get generators, get this, get that? Are we going to have like a shutdown, no internet, no nothing, and nothing but, and then when people come out of this, they're like, what the, what? And then now we got them primed, the pump is primed, and you can tell them the truth. And the other thing, I do realize that not everyone's going to wake up. I do know that. I know that. But a larger number of us, do you think what we're going through now is pushing some of those diehard Christian Moors who sleep in Christian Moors and sleep in, Islamic Moors, not Islamism, but, they may be indifferent, but they don't think they're a part of this? Do you think that?
What I really think it's going to take, unfortunately, it's like what the European is doing right now. I mean, they're doing what the prophet said. He said he was going to make them tell the truth. They're pulling off everything. Pulling everything. And it's making us need each other and support one another. What I think is all of the people who consider themselves leaders in Moorish science right now need to come together. All of the misinformation, all of the new organizations, all of this, I'm right, you're not right, groups need to stop. Because Moorish science is no differently. It shouldn't be no different. If I'm going from one group to another, I should not be being taught different information. We all might have different portions of comprehension, but the information should not be that different. And so I think that we as leaders have to come together and help wake up the people. I mean, literally, because we need each other. And the prophet said we're going to need each other more so after a while. Well, after a while is here.
Now.
So, yes, right now, right here. And so we've tried before calling a leadership conference before, and we can try doing that again. And I think it probably would take people who they really like to hear, like, for instance, the National Grand Street Tariq Bey. Everybody loves Taj, so he might be one of the ones that might need to call to order the information. I think there's a lot of people, what I've been recently hearing about Lamont, Maurice Hill, that a lot of people follow in his trend. So he might be one of the ones too. So whatever leaders, and if you're out there, I'm putting the plea out to call like the prophet did. He put out the divine plea to all the nations. I'm just calling on the Moors. I don't care about these other nations of people. But I think that we need to put that plea out and come together, because we have to learn to disagree without being disagreeable. Because the whole mission of this organization was the uplifting of fallen humanity. It was not to uplift yourself or your ego. It was to uplift us as a people, to wake us up and put us back into the affairs of human society, because we have fell so low that we needed to be picked back up. I know some of you Moors feel like, oh, that wasn't me. I was never a slave of Slavic, and all those ridiculous things you can put out there and say, yes, we know that all of these words are Slavic or English or British or whatever we're speaking, but you were still enslaved. or your forefathers or foremothers were free Moors roaming around owning slaves. Either way, we need to come together and be united as one front, because right now with the school, we are teaching our youth what they need to do, because we don't want to let the youth out and there's nothing for them to go to. There's nowhere to go once we graduate them from our schooling system, but back into the Negro problem. And the prophet told us that that is our problem. The Negro problem is our problem. Negro it's the same word in the Moorish, Latin, or Spanish language, it's black. So if you call yourself black, you're still a Negro. You're still a nigger. You're still calling yourself those things that allude to slavery. If you want to be black, you're still calling yourself non-existent, void of life. You know, you're not calling yourself anything but, again, a Negro, a slave. And so those things we have to wake up to. We have to change our condition, change our language, and change the mindset of the people. And because people need leadership, it's going to take those who are in leadership to help change that mindset. It definitely is. So the European, because they can keep stepping on us and stumping on us, but until we wake up and the light comes on, we'll keep being stumped on and stepped on. And what we're going to be talking about today, them coming into your household, taking your children, coming into your household, putting you out in the street. All these things are slave acts. And we're going to talk about why they still feel powerful enough to do that. And as Moors, we have to stop them. And yes, there's going to be a few of us who are going to be martyrs, who they're going to lock up, who they're going to harass, who they're going to try to use to make you be afraid or scared. But this is part of the fight. We have to continue to fight. And we can't stop fighting. And we got to come together. And one of the problems I want to add too is brothers don't want to listen to sisters. I hear a lot of brothers talk about, how the Moabite is this and how our women are this. But you have these lectures, and you have these meetings, and there's no humanity in the room. No humanity speaking. You got all these men on the patriarchal side talking to mother, but you have no matriarchs up there talking. And you have to start making sure that you have us there as well, because we need to be here talking and speaking to the brothers too, because you're our sons. We need to be out there on the forefront also. You all say you put us up front, but literally, do you mean it? Because mother by law is the first teacher. She is the one that educates, and you all have to realize that and stop putting us down. The European knows that you don't have respect for your woman. And so if you don't respect us, why do you think anyone else will also? So a lot of questions we need to ask ourselves on why we're not getting the respect and things that we need. And as a nation of people, we have to do our part. We can't let someone come in and conquer and divide us. That's what happened to the Black Panther movement. I don't know how people remember that, but they sent letters to the women saying that the men were sleeping with this woman or that woman, and they used the drugs and all of that, and the women were getting up in arms and accusing their men and all of this. And I have to say that if my husband is out on the forefront fighting for something, I'm not worried about whether he's with some other woman somewhere or something like that. That is a mindset. And those are the weak parts of our mind. If you're so busy worrying about where your husband is laying his head at, that the work is not important. Are you in it for him, or are you in it to do the work? A lot of questions that we have to ask ourselves, and we have to get out there and start doing the work. We have to start also overcharging each other, because a lot of times we have services, goods and services for each other, but we overcharge. We would never charge our brothers and sisters that or pay that in a European store anywhere. So we have to start making sure that we're worthy of what we say we're worth of. Also, you can't be overcharging. You can't tell me that you want to work for me for $85,000 a year when you know you're only making $30,000 a year or somewhere else. You know, just those type of things. We have to really start changing our mindset. When we change our mindset, we'll change our conditions.
You're here. Well, listen, there's a question in the, and it leads to what you're going to be talking about, but D. Bay, I'm just going to show the question. It says, is there an affidavit of fact that we can send to the corporations regarding the 1954 Declaration Rights of the Child with the mother, since the child is under international law?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have all that kind of documentation. What happens is first you have to find out the reason why you're sending the affidavit, because it could be, say, simple format of a letter first. And that is considered an affidavit. Any type of letter that's invoking any type of right, or, that is an affidavit. Now, what we do is once we put the information out there and we send all of the required paperwork that we need to send, and they continue to violate you, then we do a violation letter. That holds more weight than anything, because a violation is against national law and state law. So no one is here to violate your rights. So we're going to talk about those rights that parents have and that children have today. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So before we go there, I just have to say this, because we're talking about following, the blueprint that Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the foundation that he laid out. No one's saying that he wasn't the first Moor, but he was the one to bring the truth of who we are to us here on these shores. But I was disturbed yesterday when someone, and I won't name them, sent me a post that someone else had made, and I don't think they made the post, but it was a poster with a lot of pictures of like preachers and speakers, and it said the title was False Prophets. And in the left hand side of this sort of collage of I'm going to cover up. In the left hand side of this, there is Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And so the person who posted it, I don't think they made it, but they posted it. And so it was sent to me because people were saying, do you realize that Prophet Noble Drew Ali is on there? And the person who posted said, I don't worship any man. And it said something and one to one person. And this person, I'm gonna call him a person because I know a person, but they're saying basically, they call themselves the Moor. And I'm trying to figure out how, we're talking about coming together, and you're in a position of leadership, and you will say that the main one that we know, that we follow, we don't worship him like God. He didn't want to be worshiped.
That's
but
right.
We respect and honor what he did and what he brought to us. How can you call yourself a Moor and have that feeling with regards to the one who brought the truth to light?
That's because a lot of people do not respect. You have to look at the time the prophet was in. Even when he was on the scene, you had non-believers, all right? And so really a prophet is one who prophesizes. Like, I could be considered prophetic, right? So that doesn't make me a false prophet because I'm prophetic, and one prophet is one who's able to let you see into the future, let you see, try to prepare you for what's to come. And so if we look at the work of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, we can indeed say that he was exactly who he said he was, and he prepared us, because I'm so prepared for this fight. Prophet Noble Drew Ali said that you don't worship man. He said you don't worship anyone, but you honor. So we honor the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, of course, because if it was not for him coming here in 1912 and set up the first organization in 1913, you would probably still be back in slavery here. You would have no idea of who you were, nationality or birthright. So they talk about Deuce Muhammad. Deuce Muhammad called himself black, and Negro in color. He didn't come here talking about more science. I love and honor Marcus Mosiah Garvey, but he talked about the Negro issue and the black issue. Marcus Garvey didn't talk about nationality, perception, and birthrights and who we were. He never told us who we were. You have a lot of different people. Sister Harriet Tubman, right? Well, we know her name was Harriet Tubman Bay, right? She was here, and she had no concept of the freedom of being free, but being free and national conscious. The only one that came here was Noble Drew Ali. That was it. He came here and he told us that we were not Negro, black, and colored, and those things that allude to slavery. He showed us on the right path of going to the law, to going to the history books, what they call them, which we know is our legacy now, and find about who he was. He took the time and the opportunity to teach us, and he laid his life on the line to do so. So if anyone doesn't honor that, then what can you say about the integrity of the person who doesn't honor him? And then again, anyone, I mean, they put Jesus as blonde hair and blue eyed up all the time as a prophet. Even I'll tell you, recently I was very disturbed in the movie Respect, where I love Jennifer Hudson. But in the background of the picture on that Christ on their wall was a blonde haired, blue eyed figure. It was not what we would want our Christ to look like, or our Jesus, or whatever, which we know in reality was not his name in the first place. So that Jesus and Christ and all that is fictitious, is non-existent. No Jesus ever lived in that era of time and taught the people anything. So anytime you have people that do that, they're trying to plant the seed of doubt. And the prophet teaches the doubts of their own raising. So if they want to doubt, let them doubt. It doesn't stop the work that we have to do. So if you are in doubt, and he says this, if you do not believe in I, the prophet, turn in your card and button. Probably don't even have one of those. Cease wearing your turban and fez. You probably don't do that either. And return to the state, which is the state of mind where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drawley. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. All right. So if you don't feel like that you want to honor the work that he did, then stop using your bad ear. Why are you holding on to it? If you got your turban and fez, cease wearing it, because you are not the one that we want to follow him. We want strong men and women. We know there's going to be some passive Moors. It's all right. You need some people who are passive in a group, but you also need Moors that are active in a group. Those who are going to keep things moving. So I would say to that brother and those who posted it, your doubts of your own raising. If you doubt the prophet Noble Drawley,
unfortunately, it was a sister.
A sister, her too. Anyway, humanity doubt. If you doubt whether the prophet is right, then turn in your card and button if you have one. Cease wearing your turban and return to the state where the prophet found you. He meant the state of mind, which is that Negroism. Return back to that which you were found in. I welcome you to turn back. We don't need that. We have a lot of work to do. And we don't need negativism in it. We have a lot of work to do. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So anyway, now I get a lot of calls and you get a lot of calls, and I referred a few sisters over to you who have dealt with the issue of either their children or the grandchildren. And I've even gotten calls from fathers who have called on behalf of the children being taken, from the mothers, and they're not given any rights to protest or to go back and to get there. And it was a few, maybe 6-7 months, maybe about 5 months ago, when I heard a non-Asiatic on a show who was up in Canaan Lane in Canada, who works a lot with these types of situations. And this is the first time I heard about children being property, being considered, and some things that we don't, I would never call my children property, but you got to do things, is it called lawful versus, versus whatever you feel is the customary
process, right? Lawful is law, and legal is a simulation of the law, which it means it's not the real thing. It's artificial.
Right. So with that, I listened to this, this Albion talk about how this family had their children taken away, and they had, I think they were growing marijuana, and they had a weapon in the property, and they had like 2 or 3 children. So whatever the province or something took the children, and they had been fighting the husband and wife to get the children back. And so when they met this guy who he was on a show, they heard him say, if there's anyone out there who's lost their children, somebody contacts me, I will help them. The mother reached out. She was willing to learn what to do. So the father still wanted to go up there and argue, we need our children, give us our children back. And they were just throwing them to the side. But when it's all said and done, the gentleman gave them a few short words to say, and it had to do with the property, the way they wrote would it be the affidavit, whatever they wrote. Then they listed the property on the back, on the, whatever the property, I guess, as an addendum or whatever, as an exhibit. So the children were property. The gun was property, and I don't know whether the weed was property, but when it was all said and done, they got the children back and the gun back. They didn't say anything about the weed, but the fact of the matter is, it was because of how they structured that communication, or that writ. And I was told then by another brother Urad, he's used that before to help others get their children back. Property. And I say, as crude as it might sound, why does that work?
Well, because let's look at the definition of property, and I have my little notes today and definitions. You know, words are so powerful. We love words.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to put my new glasses on. I trust everyone. You can tell me a thumbs up if you all like my new glasses, right? I have some peepers. New ones. Yes. I love them. They probably look like crooked.
Yeah.
Everything looks crooked to me on here. So and maybe I'm crooked. So let's go into the word property. I do have several definitions that I want to go into, but let's go into the word property. So property is defined as dominion or right of use, control, and deposition, which one may lawfully exercise over things, objects, or land. One of the basic dividing lines between property that is between real property and personal property is property that is movable in common law systems. Personal property may also be called chattel or personality property. In civil law systems, generally, the term real property refers to land. So you have two types of the property that's dealt with. One is real property and one is personal property. And personal property is property that is considered chattel property, like the Europeans called us property. Remember, they used us as property to fight for us in the court systems, right? We were their property to get their property back. So that is why property is considered personal property, is how your children would be considered. Your personal property. So they are your personal property, which means that you own the rights to that property. So that's why that works. You own the rights to that property, and there's no one that can take those rights away from you according to the laws of the Constitution of property, right? And so that is why that works so well about property. So, and let me just get into a few things here. So first I want to talk about protecting also. So we're going to get some definition of words. And I have a new book out called The Rights of the Child. And all what I'm coming from is notes from my book. And I also have all of the laws in that book about children, about your children and how to fight for the rights of your children in that. So let's go to the word protecting. To shield from injury or harm, or harming public health and safety, to secure or preserve against encroachment, infringement, restriction, or violation. These are all lawful terms, okay? Children. Children defined as human beings between the stages of birth and puberty, or between the developmental period of infancy and puberty. The lawful definition of child generally refers to a minor, otherwise known as a person younger than the age of maturity. This term refers to immediate offspring of a person, whether legitimate or not, and any children legally adopted by a person. Children can be legitimate or illegitimate, meaning confirming or not confirming to rules or laws. And why is that important? Because as an instructor, the children can be considered my children. I can still fight for the rights of the child. I don't have to be the person that gave birth to the child to fight for the rights of the child, because they are our children. And this is where in a nation, a society, a government, that your rights of your child can be protected by your nation. But you have to be the ones who proclaim who you are, proclaim your nation, proclaim that this is where you belong to, and that you're a part and parcel of the nation, and a partial of the nation, which means parcel is part pertaining to land of the nation, and partial would be pertaining to what the nation does, the enactments of the nation, the things that the nation do, that they do as far as religion and social and economics and all those things. You would have to make sure that you take and invoke that that's what you do. And this is what happens when you proclaim your national status. When you proclaim your nationality with the nation or whatever group you're in, you're taking a part in that is what you do. And so that gives the person who's leading you the rights to fight for you and your children. That gives us those rights to do that. But what happens, we have to learn our rights, and that is what we don't know. So I want to go into the question of who owns our children, and what you were saying, who this man who helped them probably has had an experience of losing some children, or someone who has lost children. I'm telling you, I feel crooked. Like my glasses feel like they're crooked on my face. I don't know why.
You're good now.
Okay. All right. Okay. So then I'm just going to go into, so the question of who owns our children is neither new nor easily answered. And this is all in my book. The questions once drove by Solomon to suggest that a child can be cut in half to each of the two contesting owners' mothers who get equal parts. And this is in King James for those who read the Piscean record. This is in King James. The King James version of the Bible is 1 Kings 3:16 through 28. And in that is talking about two women who are battling against their children. And in this particular, you probably know what I'm talking about. And so in this, the woman obviously lays on her child or something. The child passed away at night, and then she changes children with the other woman, right? That's what happens in this particular set. But then when the woman wakes up, she notices that the child is lifeless, but then she notices it's not her child. And she noticed that the woman who took the child has her child. And so there's a debate because they're both in the same house. Okay, both in the same house. And so they ask the king to decide. And so the king tells them, well, he's going to cut the child in half. And then this way, they'll have equal rights to the child. Of course, the mother, who is a true mother, said, please don't hurt my child. Don't cut the child in half. And then one who's obviously not really attached to the mother says, cut the child in half so we'll both have equal parts. That lets you know that she was not the real mother, because no mother is going to tell you to cut their child in half. And so this goes the same thing with property and ownership, too, of what we own. How do we make sure that our children are not governed by this government? The birth certificate, parents, and I'm going to get into this, is a real reason why they believe that they own your children, because you sign a contract, knowingly or unknowingly, giving them the rights to your child. And that is an issue. That is a problem. Now, I have a sister, and her husband called me the other day where they did not even do a birth certificate, and they still came in and took their children. So that's a new case that I'm working on, but I don't have all the particulars. That I'm waiting for them to send me all the information so we can go ahead and put in the correct information so that we can make sure that we're addressing the right entities and, start the battle for getting their children back. But I want to go this. We presume that if anyone owns our children, it must be the parents. But the presumption is routinely challenged by media accounts of parents who lose custody of their children for reasons that seem irrational. As a result, some people begin to suspect that maybe we don't really own our children. That's a question, right? Do we own our children? The heart of this suspicion in government's habit is taking children without the due process of law or affording the parents the presumption of innocence. And governmental agencies sometimes go in and seize the children like we repossess cars. And that's the example that I use. Because when your car is repossessed, they repossess it because you don't have ownership of the car. You're still making a payment on your car. So they take it if you non-payment, or if it's not insurance, or whatever reason they come with these legalities that they repossess your car. Well, with your children, when you give them over to the government, you're leasing your children to you. You don't own your children. You're leasing them because you have signed them over to the government. So the government is saying to you, all right, we're going to let you raise these children the way we want you to raise them. And if you don't follow our rules and regulations, we're going to take the children out of your household and place them somewhere else, because they're still considering these children as chattel property. That's the reason why they can keep calling your children kids and get away with it. And you all want to battle me about the word kids. I have some parents who want to fight me stump down about calling these children kids. There's nothing wrong with that word. And if you look in law, there's a lot wrong with the word kid. It's as bad as calling yourself a guy or Negro, black, and colored. Your children are children, not kids. And all of the laws that I'm going to talk about today talk about children. They don't talk about kids. So the reason why you have no rights is because you as a parent are taking your child's rights. Do you know in the International Rights of the Child, in Principle 3, it says that every child is entitled to a name and a nationality at birth? So when you name your children under the Negro names and status,
you yourself are putting your children in harm's way because you are not giving them a nationality nor a birthright, because your birthright comes from your name. It comes from maternity. It comes from the mother. It comes from your legacy. And our legacy are not these European slave indoctrination of names. And so as cute as you might think they are names that allude to slavery. And we are putting our children in harm's way. So I just wanted to go to that. All right, so I want to go to now. So the reason banks can repossess your car without going to court and affording you the due process of the presumption is because they are making a repayment on a loan. It is hard to believe, but perhaps in some reasoning applies to our children. Maybe the government can seize your children because the parents do not lawfully own them. It's a question. Do you lawfully own your children? All right. And is the true owner the government, and they lend your children out to you? Introduced in the House on 6/28/1995. This was the Parental Rights Act that was introduced to the House. Parental Rights Act of 1995 prohibits any federal, state, or local government or any official of such a government from interfering with or asserting, which means to take a position of power or importance, illegal or by force, the right of a parent to the governing upbringing of a child or the parent. This allows any exception of this act unless the government or official is able to demonstrate by appropriate evidence that such interference or usurpation is valid to accomplish a compelling argument and interest in the case of the child, meaning some type of abuse has happened to the child. So this law protects the parent, that the government can't just come in and take your children. And even if the government says some type of abuse has taken place, you are innocent until proven guilty. Your child should not be taken into that and taken away from you. And if they take your child away from you saying that some type of abuse has occurred, then as soon as upon investigation that they find there's no abuse, your child should be returned. But when you are in a government like we are, that would be our job. So the neglect or abuse should be reported to our government. We should be going in, if you look at the treaty laws, we should be going in and talking to the parent. And in our own government, we should be taking the children until we find out if something is going on in that household, not another government. The United States is not a government anywhere. And we're going to talk about this too here in my documentation, in my book. They're not a government, and everything I'm telling you, you can research the information for yourself. All right. So I want to go into now, we're going to talk about rights. So let's talk about some of the rights of the child. All right. Principle 1, it says, the child shall enjoy all the rights set forth in the Declaration. Every child, without any exception whatsoever, shall be entitled to these rights without distinction or discrimination on any account of race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status, whether or himself or his family. So your child has rights. You all are so used to having the things that they simulate as rights or privileges, but these are rights of the children. The child have rights. We're going to talk about their rights, and we're talking about parents' rights. Principle 2, the child shall enjoy special protection and shall be given opportunities and facilities by law and other means to enable him to develop physically, mentally, moral, spiritually, and socially in a healthy and normal manner and in conditions of freedom and dignity. And enactment of laws for this purpose, the best interest of the child shall be the paramount consideration. Again, the rights of the child, and every parent should have these rights. So what I did in this book is I put all of the rights that I could find in this book for the children and all the parental rights in this book. So instead of having to go research all of this, you can get it all in one booklet. And I even break what all of it down means because this is so important. Principle 3, most of us are familiar with Principle 3. The child shall be entitled from birth to a name and a nationality. So we know that a lot of parents today are becoming conscious and they're naming their children by birthright and they're giving them their nationality, which is Moorish. A lot of people, even though they're not really quite sure of the whole concept right now, they are basically making sure that they at least try to give their children's first name are nationally conscious, even though we still got to work on them last names because those names don't belong to us. Jones, Smith, and Johnson, and McMillan, and Bristol, and all those names, they don't belong to us either. And so we need to give those names back. And I don't care what leader you under is telling you that those names, you can use them, you can't. Okay, because you're still considered chattel property. That's another man's name, and that's identity theft. You need to give it back. That's the bottom line with that. All right, I'm going to jump down to principle 6. The child, for the full and harmonious development of his personality, needs love and understanding. He shall, wherever possible, grow up in the care and under the responsibility of his parents. Okay? So again, in these rights, in principle 6 is telling you as a parent how the child should grow up. This is what it's telling you. And even if when they wrote these rights, they weren't considering us, let's just say that we weren't even in the picture. It doesn't matter because these rights are here and we can enforce those. As being nationals, we are not state property or state. Everything we do is on a national and federal level. It has nothing to do with the state. And so even if someone says to you, well, by state law, you can let them know that state law never supersedes federal. If there's ever a conflict between state law and federal law supersedes every time. The only time federal law does not is if the federal law has not made a law that the state has, and then you can still challenge that. So we have to keep those things in mind. I want to move down to the educational piece, which is so important for us, and where a lot of us are dealing with the problems of education. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment when I read this about what we're dealing with in the school. Principle 7, the child is entitled to receive education, which shall be free and compulsory, at least in the elementary stages. He shall be given an education which will promote his general culture and enable him on a basis of equal opportunity to develop his abilities. And we say he, we're talking about she, they have the matriarch stuff, the patriarch stuff here, his individual judgment and his sense of moral and social responsibilities, and to become a useful member of society. The best interest of the child shall be the guiding principle of those responsibilities for his education and guidance. That responsibility lies in the first place with his parents. Okay, his or her parents. Again, when you're having these issues with these different school systems, you're not really doing the law. And so we have a document that we do that's called a withdrawal letter, and we do some of those issues in a withdrawal letter. But if you have a problem with the school after that, then we do a proof of verification form showing them that the child is enrolled into our school by proof. Then if they still want to carry on, which we haven't had anyone go past that point, then what we do is we do what is considered a violation letter. A violation intimidation letter is they're trying to intimidate you and your child, because in these laws it's telling you that you as a parent have the right to choose the education for your child. These state governments do not. And for some reason, the state think that they over the top of federal government. These days, the state believe that they can supersede over the federal government. And a lot of times the federal government will kick it down to the state, and you got to kick it back up to the federal government. All right, so that's just some of the things that's going on right now. Just a few more before I yield the floor. All right, number 8, the child shall in all circumstances be among the first to receive protection and relief. So the protection lies within whom? The parent, not some other entity or government. All right, number 9, the child shall be protected against all forms of neglect, cruelty, and exploitation. So if your child is being constantly pulled and they're telling you they want to put your child into these institutions and they want to take your children away from you, what are they doing to your children? They are breaking their own laws that they have put on the books. Number 10, the child shall be protected from practices which may foster racial, religion, and other forms of discrimination. He shall be brought up in a spirit of understanding, tolerance, friendship among peoples, peace, and universal brotherhood, and the full consciousness that his energy and talent should be devoted to the service of his fellow men. And so all of that is, can these public school systems that you're sending your children to do that? Are they teaching your children culture, religion, rights, those things that pertain to your community and your society? They are not. So they cannot tell you that you cannot take your child out of those schools and put them into a school system that does. I yield the floor to you, Dr. Nationality, for any questions, concerns, comments, or anything of what I went over so far.
I'm trying to follow what's going on in the chat because somebody said something about responding to a question. So I was trying to go back or to find out what the original question is. And so it's kind of a little, so I'm going to put the first thing I see with regard to this that goes back. So this person in chat says that they're full-blooded Cree First Nation, and that in all caps, they are the indigenous people from the continent. Wait a minute. And so another so I'm trying to, so we can respond to them. I think they go on, and I'm not sure whether it's which one of them it is, because it seems to be two. Oh, here we go. I hate hearing Moors tell my people that we are squatting here. It's a severe insult to my ancestors. And then there's a one more comment that, because I want you to address this. No, those two more. We didn't survive genocide and racism and treaties being penned like cattle to have an immigrant call me a squatter. So there's and here's who they're calling an immigrant. Where did I see that last thing? Basically, what I saw, they said that Moors are immigrants, were brought here. They were here. Here we go. Don't call us squatters. You guys were brought here. We were here already. Everyone else is an immigrant, including Moors. How do you address that series of
misinformation? My dear brother or sister, whoever posted that misinformation, because the indigenous people that were here that are deeply melanated were the Moors. So, first of all, I'm not sure any Moors have ever called any people who they call from these these false names of Apache and Cherokee, which are all false names that were given by Europeans. Those people may be calling you squatters. I've never heard any Moors call any people who refer to themselves as Native Americans or indigenous squatters. We do not disrespect our brothers and sisters. However, we are not immigrants. We are the true inhabitants of the whole entire universe. First of all, we are the originators of everything. And so we were here first. And so you all that are here now with us are, the subject of amalgamation. And, I just don't like to, put it that way, but truth is truth. So, the ones that, even if you look at a lot of history, it shows you the true so-called Native Americans look like me. So I'm not sure why you are insulted by any Moors, because we are your mothers and fathers. You are our sisters and brothers. So I'm not sure if any Moors, I've never in a conversation with any Moors have heard any of them call squatters. And I'm not even insulted that you think that we are immigrants, because that's misinformation, miseducation, misknowledge. And so what I would say is come on board with me and learn the true heritage about yourself along with us, because those names that you are calling yourself allude to slavery, and it sounds like you have a lot of European book learning or European information, disinformation, misinformation. So, we are indigenous to this land, just like you consider yourself to be. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Well, we it's okay to disagree as long as you're not disagreeable in your disagreement.
The right. I'm going to go into the rights of indigenous people too that I do have here, because the right. I hear some echoing. I was trying to see if it was on my end. The rights of indigenous people, because even those rights of indigenous people that our people need to know about, we are not even invoking those, and it talks about the educational system and everything in the rights of indigenous people. So the problem with this European is anything to keep us separated and against one another, when the true enemy is him, not us. When I say him, I mean their whole entire nation or forefathers, whatever you want to call themselves. They are the problem. Those are the issues. And it's more of those who want to stay in power. There's more of those who want to try to keep everyone subservient to them. Because realistically, we have to talk about the word white on another segment and when these people became white. Because they chose that word white. They did it and they put it to an existence. And they are actually not white. They use that to make a status quo. And they started using the term white. So when they bring the word white in, the word black came into existence as well. Because they had to make somebody less subservient than they are. Because when they were first here, they weren't calling themselves white. And if you go to different European countries, they don't call themselves white. Only here in the Northern America place do they call themselves white. And it's all about status. It has nothing to do with complexion of your skin. It's all about status and where they see you. Because even according to them, when they did redlining, they added the Japanese, Chinese, and Koreans and the brothers and sisters who they consider from over Arabia and all of those places, the seed of Hagar, all of them. They put all of them under the status of white to keep everyone under a status that keeps us out of. And that way they could keep us subservient and downtrodden and never be able to have anything. You have to ask yourself, why would a people fight so hard to keep you in a position of not being able to climb back into where you were before? You have to ask yourself that question. And why would I, being someone who considers myself indigenous, want to fight with those whose fight is worse than what we went through? I mean, because even Hitler treated the Jews better than they treat us here. I mean, so you have to look at those things. And why would you want to fight me? Why your fight is not with me? Why aren't you fighting a man that you believe that kept you down? Why would you want to fight me? We're on the same battlefield, fighting the same fight. And we need to come together collectively and talk about that fight.
Absolutely. And, you know, and I can see the anger in their, what they're putting, because anytime somebody starts all capping, that's when you're really being, you know, kind of forceful, but it's no need. It's no need. I mean, and you're right. You know, I don't know what that saying is, but it's like what is it? The enemy of my enemy is my friend or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if I said it right. But you know, you're the direction of their anger is misdirected.
Misguided, yes.
Misguided and misdirected. And
yes, and you're with the European, you're trying to hate me like they hate me, and they don't like you no more than you like yourself. And the reason they don't like you is because you us. You've been lightened up by amalgamation, and that's the truth, whether you like it or not. Truth is truth. And so you are now not that deep, beautiful complexion like I am that you once were. But that doesn't change who you are. And so if you want to continue to battle with us, I'm not your enemy. So you're on the wrong side of the table. You need to get on the right side of the table and join us in our fight, because we include you in our fight. But I must say that my people, the Moors, who are conscious of who they are, is my very first priority. So your anger and all of that you're going through, you should talk to the chiefs of your tribes, and you should talk to the people that really know the truth, because I've sat down with a lot of people who consider themselves indigenous that know exactly who they are and know that the false names that are put on them are false. I've sat down to the table many times with them, and they know. And so again, misguided anger, misguided direction. The man that's stomping on you is the one you should guide that anger to, not to the ones we're trying to lift our heads up to. So we're trying to get back in front and not be behind. So, absolutely.
Let me see if there are any more questions. All right. Well, I don't see any more questions. Hopefully I addressed, because apparently they wanted me to address that. So you have so aptly. There is a question. But when is the book? Here it is. When is the book come? I'll put it up here. When is the book coming out from the Prime Minister?
No, it's already complete. I have to put it up into the website. It is complete. It's published. I do my own writing and my own publications. Just so you all know, we have Circle 7 Publishing here, so we do our own publications, and it'll be put on the site. I'll go work to get it up there this weekend so people can order it this weekend.
Yes, if they would like to order it.
I don't know whether I have your website.
Circle7publishing.com.
Okay, well, I'll put it up.
Okay. Yes.
That's easy enough. That's easy enough to do. Okay.
Yes, it's the number 7, Circle7 Publishing.
Okay.
Yeah, circle7publishing.com.
Okay. Is it www, HTTPS, or?
It's www.circle7publishing.com. And then, of course, if you want to email us there, you can do that, circle7publishing@gmail.com. So it's all Circle 7 with the number 7 publishing.
7publishing.com.
I'm going to turn this fan on really quickly. Tom left me in here burning up.
Okay. Books.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And so while we're doing that, what I wanted to do is, I really wanted to make sure that we comprehend the challenges that we're having. So I want to go into now the international rights of indigenous people. And as I stated earlier, we are also indigenous. We are indigenous to this land. We are the owners and true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire. And so even though some of you all may not really know the legacy, it's time to start learning it, because we have to make sure that we're protecting what's ours. This land was stolen away from us. And along with that came our rights, our legacy, and we got his story in place of the legacy. We got his story. And so now we're trying to dissolve the story. Most of us believe in it because it was in books, because they said, guess what, put it in books. The reason you weren't able to read or write or learn how to read or write, because they knew if you would learn to read or write, you would be able to discern the truth from falsehood. And so now we know the truth. And those of us who know the truth, we're speaking out. And some people are angry about that. And, it's okay if you're angry. It does not change the truth, period. All right, so we're going to go to indigenous individuals. All right, so the rights of indigenous people, Article 7. And I'm going to say Article 7 has 2 parts. Indigenous individuals have the right to life, physical and mental integrity, liberty and security of person. Number 2, indigenous people have the collective right to live in freedom, peace, and security as distinct people, and shall not be subjected to any act of genocide or any other act of violence, including forcibility, removing children of the group to any other group. So I want to talk about that one, because we were talking earlier about dealing with children that are being taken away from their parents.
What about, before you say that, what about children who are taken away from, say, the mother, and custody is given to a father under circumstances that really shouldn't have happened, but because the so-called court is favoring the father, and does that even help with a mother who's lost her children or child to a father who may not be in the child's best interest? How does one fight? Would that be included in the same types of things, or is it just when the so-called state takes a child and puts them in a foster situation?
No, the mother, because the rights first belong to the mother. As we stated earlier, in the rights of the child and the international rights of the child, the rights first belong to the mother, because mother is maternal. That is your maternal child. And so your rights are first. And so you can use the maternal rights to fight for your child back. And again, we're talking about circumstances of why the child was taken, because a lot of times people are giving us circumstances of the children, but they're not really telling us exactly what happened that the child was taken away from the home, So we have to have all the information so we can put on a good fight, We have to have all the information, all that's going on, that we have to make sure that we know the truth. Because if you tell us a falsehood, I can't fight for your rights because I don't have the truth. I need to have exactly what's going on so I can do the correct fight. But, the thing is, us in more science, and us as Asiatic melanated people, we should not be fighting with our husbands or anyone about who has the rights to the child. Again, that's talking about dividing the child in half. We should not be fighting one another. We should be coming together, and it should be, if you're in here in the nation,
where I, as the prime minister, would sit down with the husband and the wife and try to work something out that's agreeable to both parties. We should not be in these courtrooms battling about the rights of our children, because what winds up happening, if this is what we're doing, this is why the courts wind up taking our children from us. They take our children from us and they put them somewhere else to someone they have no business being with, because we act like we don't have good sense. You know what I'm saying? So
you have sometimes children that are born outside of the bounds of a matrimony, and
right.
And I do have a situation that in mind that I have in mind, and in this case, what the mother did was felt that she needed to kind of get herself together for she needed maybe a month or so to get herself together. So she asked the aunt, which was the father's sister, if she would take care of her child for about a month, and then she would come back and get her. The father found out the child was there, took her, and then from all the last several years, she's only had these very fleeting visits, and now they're cutting all the visits off altogether. They won't even let her. She has to see her through a door or see her with just crazy stuff. But the thing of it is, I'm saying that's the same thing as I'm taking a child and putting them in a strange place. If you can't see your child, if the mother can't bond with their child, are they able to fight, even though it's with each other, for the best?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you have to take into account everything that took place, why she gave it to the aunt, all of that. She had to write a statement of why she had to do all those things, and then state why you feel like you have the right to have your child back, because you did give the child up. That's a little, you did give the child up, even though it was made, I don't know if you contracted and told them how long you would need or whatever. So you would have to look at the circumstances, and then we would have to try to fight to get your child back, on those rights, and you have to make sure that, whatever you need to do to get yourself together, that's something that's not going to take place again, because especially if they're going to fight you in these court systems here and these quasi courts, we have to have a very strong argument. We have to use all of our rights with a very strong argument. And of course, mother's rights, paternal rights are first. And so in order for us to invoke those rights, you must first be able to stand up for that and say, yes, what took place. You have to be very open and honest. Why you needed a break. Why did you give it to the aunt? You have to look all those things. And will this happen again? Because if you're going to these courts, that's their first question. You gave the child up before. What means you won't give the child up again? All these type things. So you have to sit down and write everything. It's very important to journal everything, all information. So when you're ready to do your fight, you have all the information right up front, all the information that we can use for rights for your child, all the information of law. We can use all of those to battle, and we have a good chance of a good fight, because again, mother is the very first parent by maternal rights. So as mother, you are bound first by the rights. Even though they try to now make it equal with the father and all of that stuff, father will never be equal, because rights are maternal, and those come from mother, not father.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm hearing horror stories, though. At least once or twice, maybe once or twice a month, someone's calling with an issue of my child has been taken, or my children have been taken.
Yes, and I'm going to do that a lot. In the school system that I'm dealing with, one case right now, where the school system is trying to put truancy out on the parent, a single parent, trying to make them truant when the children are in school and enrolled. So I had to send them a letter of proof of enrollment with the definition of truancy. Like you all don't know what the definition of truancy is. The children are in school. It doesn't say if you approve of the school. It doesn't say the school has to be by state. That is not what it says. Before these school systems came about, how were we teaching our children? From home, in our own groups and communities. We control the narrative for our children, not someone else. We have to stop giving these agencies and other people the power. We simply have to stop doing that. We have to take back the power. And I'm encouraging mothers, fight for your children. What we have done is made the schools a babysitting service. We have left the homes and going on to the plantations to make wages to feed our babies. So we've given our children to these people, And now they feel like they own them. And I'm going to talk about why they feel like they own our children. They feel like they own them.
Here's a comment as a share. Listing says in Australia, a surrogate mother was contracted to give birth for a lady who died before the baby was born. Courts determined the baby was quote unquote motherless. It's the first birth cert without a mother listed. So she was the surrogate, and the mother that was intended to, raise the child had died. So now the child's motherless.
Well, but see, that's by whose law? Because
By their laws.
Right, by their laws, because the mother gave birth. And if the
Right.
birth mother did not pass away, the child has a mother.
Absolutely. But in Australia, if you saw, I forgot the thing about the rabbit-proof fence. They were up until about 1970. Australia was taking children away from the Aboriginal women and putting them in. They were trying to get them out, get the melanin out of them. They figured in 3 generations they could take these children and bring them back to I guess more pristine bloodlines, and so they would take the children, and it's the truth until like about 1970. It's a movie called the Rabbit Proof Fence that I just looked at about a couple weeks ago. That made me cry for a little bit, but was happy in the end. But it was a painful thing that was going on over in Australia. So that doesn't surprise me that they would do something like that.
Well, the thing is that, it's still the child has a father. If the father, whoever wants to still take the child, but, literally by nature, by law, the child has a mother, whether or not the mother who was, the surrogate, who was a surrogate, and the mother, I guess they used the mother's DNA, I guess they call it, from the father's DNA. I'm not sure how they do all of those laboratory experiments that they want to do still on us, but the child someone gave birth to the child. And as long as the child was given birth, their child has a mother. If the birth is birth, that's what makes it mother. The child was carried in a womb, and so the child was carried to term and was born, they have a mother. So that is false, and someone who knows the law can just definitely fight that. I don't care where it is, Australia or anything else. The law is the law. That's the law of nature. So now only if the mother who gave birth to the child maybe doesn't want the child, that still doesn't mean the child doesn't have a mother.
Right.
Absolutely. So I was going into a few things I wanted to go into, like I said, and there's some information that I actually have in my book. And again, the name of my book is called The Rights of the Child. And so what I want to talk about, a little bit more about it too, is that, during my research, and I want to say first, according to this here, but let's talk about the government and the children. First of all, let's talk a little bit about this uniting of the states, and then maybe it'll make some of you all feel better. And you may have maybe Taj may have spoke about it before. I don't really know. We want to talk about, folks, according to 28 USC 3002-5, the United States is not a government. It is a private corporation, and the other 50 states plus Guantanamo, the Virgin Islands, Washington, D.C., etc., are mere corporate franchises. The United States only deals in commerce and does not so under private international law. Second, on April 9th, 1912, the United States Incorporated created the Children's Bureau and the Department of Commerce and Labor to keep track of Americans' children. See 62nd Congress, Session 2, Chapter 73, pages 79 through 80. All right, so when this went up, and I put this should have been a red flag for us, but we weren't. A lot of people were not even studying law. All right, then 1922, Congress passed the Shepherdtown or Paternity Act that created the United States birth registration. And these are all.
What year was that again? 19.
Say that one more time.
What year was that created?
In 1921.
Okay.
Yes. And I'll make sure I send you all this information. See Public Law 97, 6th Congress, Session 1, Chapter 135. The Shepherdstown Act allows parents to register their children when they are born and then receive a copy of the birth certificate. Okay, now I'm going to read a 1985 letter from the Health Services Agency of the County of Shasta, California, which illustrates the significance and consequences of having or not having a birth certificate. And I'm going to read this. So I'm going to read this and what this letter actually says. This was a letter sent. And, just for sake, I'm going to use the initial of the person that it was sent to, just for, making sure that we definitely are not putting someone's information out there, but this is a matter of public record. It says, "Dear Miss R, as I understand that you gave birth to twin girls on July 30th and 31st, 1985 at Mercy Medical Center of Redding, California. I also understand from the hospital staff that you did not desire to register the birth of your girls with them at this time. I'm writing to inform you of information you may not be aware of. According to state regulations, if you do not register," remember I said state regulations. Again, this is California state regulations. It said if you do not register your daughter's birth within the first year of their delivery, they would then have to be registered on the delayed registration of birth form, and costs would be at that time $15. Considering the fact that you delivered in a hospital and had a physician in attendance. This would probably be no consequence or trouble for you now, but in later years, this may be a problem for your daughters. I am sure you are aware of the utmost importance in having a birth certificate as soon as possible. In 20 years, the hospital records which have been destroyed and your physician may not be available to help you with your girl. Consider the fact that in order to be registered for school, apply for a marriage license, grant or scholarship in school. The state of California requires a certified copy of a birth certificate. The federal government requires a certified copy of a birth certificate when applying for military service, passport, or social security cards. When you realize all the times that they may need their certificate of birth, you may want to contact me and we'll arrange to have them taken care of for you. Please contact me if you have any questions, Ms. Melody. Sincerely, Linda L. Allen, Deputy Registrar of Vital Statistics." Now, this lady is telling her, the lady, she didn't want a birth certificate. And she's trying to coerce her into getting a birth certificate because all of these state things will be acceptable for her child, and she will not be able to get these things if she did not have a birth certificate. Like the mother did not know this. That's the reason why she did not want her child to have a birth certificate, right? So this letter implies that in 1985, without a birth certificate, you couldn't attend or be forced to attend public schools. So if you don't have no birth certificate, you couldn't be forced, right, to attend the schools, right? To be forced, and couldn't even apply for a social security card without a so-called social security card. You can't pay income taxes. In fact, the relationship established by the birth certificate with government is far deeper than Mrs. Allen's letter implied. Today, when you voluntarily register your children, they become federal children and subject of Congress. A copy of a birth certificate is sent to the Department of Vital Statistics and the state in which your child was born. The original birth certificate is sent to the Department of Commerce in New Columbia, the former District of Columbia. And then your child's future labor properties and body are put on as a collateral for the public debt. This is the first step in United States incorporation, control, and custody of your children. And these assertions seem incredible. Ask any parent who's ever been in a divorce battle or custody for their children, and ask what they have been threatened with. Nevertheless, this government in America is telling us that the courts have more power over us, over our children, than we. For example, the purpose of the government, virtue of America's children, for example, according to, and this is a case law, Tillman versus Roberts, 108 SO 62214 in Alabama, the primary control and custody of infants and within the government, according to Nicholas versus Nicholas. And all of these case laws that are in my book are case laws that either parent or state have been battling over the children. So as you can see, as I plainly stated earlier, your problem is the birth certificate that you are filling out because you are told and lied to that you need a birth certificate for your child to have any rights. When the birth certificate puts your child on auction block and they are kept collecting a debt on your children are considered a ward of the state. And so therefore they feel that they have the rights to your child. Now you notice in the letter that Linda Allen didn't tell her the rest of what they do with the birth certificate.
Right.
She only tried to make it look pretty of what she thought that the parent might want to have for her child to enter college, but you don't need a birth certificate to enter college. You don't have to have a birth certificate to have a job. You don't have a birth certificate to go to school. You don't have a birth certificate to get married or any of those things. You only need to have that document when the state government wants to occupy the body, this physical form, and they want to have control over it. That is when you need the birth certificate. I'll open the floor. Any questions, concerns, comments?
Here's a cut. Yeah. She says, so notarized affidavit document is sufficient for live birth. That's what I did for a home birth.
Absolutely. And if you absolutely, you can create your own birth certificate. And like I had said previously early here, when children are born in the nation, we send a live certificate of birth to the parents. Because remember, I just told you that the United States is a private corporation. And I know some of you all, a lot of you all watch Ties all the time. I know the Ties I've discussed it gazillions of times. And so I know that you know that they're not real. But what happens with this fictitious government is they come in and really take our children from us, even though we know they're quasi, and we can repeat this over and over again. But if we're not enforcing the law that protects us and our children, if we're not, as Dr. Naila had put, protecting our property, then someone can come in and take your property away. I remember when I was a young girl, and because of the way I dressed and the way I acted and the way I talked, a lot of people didn't care for me. And you know, they still don't today, and that's fine. But I remember this girl was fighting me, and, you know, she wanted to fight me. And so one day she came to my house, and she wanted to fight me at my house. You know, she wanted to fight me, and I had already beat her up. That wasn't good enough for her. She wanted to fight. My mother said to me, when somebody comes to your house, to your home, and want to fight you, you don't let them chase you away from your front of your door, in your door, in your house. This is home. You better beat them off your property. You don't let nobody come into your house and beat you down and take over your property. You fight to keep what's yours. So you get out of this house, you get back out there and beat her some more until she understands that she doesn't belong on this property. Now, of course, today I would look at that as I don't want to be fighting my fellow sister, because at that time she was unconscious and she didn't realize that me wearing my turban and who I was making fun of me was not a good thing. But the bottom line with my mother, I understood her point. I comprehended her point. You don't let somebody come take away from you what belongs to you. You just don't allow them to come in and take it from you. So you have to fight for it. It's just like people say, oh, the nationality card don't work. This paperwork don't work. If it's sitting in your pocket, if it's sitting on your desk, if it's sitting in a drawer and you're not enforcing or invoking it, it's not going to work. You have to make your paperwork work for you. My paperwork works for me. Even when the courts want to try to deny my paperwork, I put more paperwork in and I keep fighting my fight. I don't let them tell me that this is it, because I'm not property of the state and I'm not nickel, black, and colored. You have to fight for your rights. And unfortunately, we have to fight. But again, as we spoke in the beginning of this conversation, that we all need to get together collectively and do this fight together. I was talking to Brother Lamont at the event that we were in, where Taj was at Everlasting Life a couple of Saturdays ago. And we need to come together, and I said, we need to talk. He was like, he's going to send his child to the school. And I'm like, we still need to talk. We need to talk because all of the people who have people that are following in with them or listening to them or they're guiding them, we need to get together and come together as one, because believe me, with all the lawful minds that we have and all the people who are fighting for their rights, we can avoid a lot of what's taking place with us right now if we come together collectively for this fight. because we're more together, minds together, fighting for the cause that's separate. And as long as they can keep battling us with this one saying they the right one, this one saying they the right one, this one saying it's the right group or whatever, they know that they got us separated and we're never going to come together collectively. This is a battle that we need to get together, because I'm telling you, we can battle this fight. And it doesn't have to be pick one off, pick one off, pick one off. We can do a collective action. We can go after all these entities. If you have a case and I have a case, we can come together and start doing a big case. We can come together and make a class action case against all of these governmental agencies who are trying to take the rights away from us. Because I'm telling you, when they say make America great again, they meant putting us back in shackles. And if it's not in physical, it's mental. And they're doing it, fighting us against one another to do that. And we see what's going on, Moors. We cannot afford to keep battling one another. We need to fight together and not separately. And that is the truth. We have to come together. Our children, it's not a cliche. Our children are our future. And if we don't get it right, when our children graduate, say they're coming to online schooling for Moorish Children, what do we have for them once they leave? The historically Black colleges, the NAACP, the plantation jobs, where you have to sign a W-2 form and tell somebody that they can take taxes out of your check. You sign a contract that you don't even know about. Excuse me, I believe that's the W-4 you signed then, and then a W-2 after, whichever which way. You can see I don't do taxes. I mean, I write it up, but I don't pay the taxes. My bottom line is that we have to have something for our children to go to, so we can't keep boasting of attainments and things that are of no worth. But where it's a shame to be ignorant, there we have no understanding. Even in the path of wisdom, we toil after folly, and shame and disappointment are the reward of our labor. That is what's going to happen. The children are going to graduate from here. And I've seen it, because when I worked in a school in Philadelphia, when the children graduate, they went to historically Black colleges. And you know what happened after all that learning? They start that Black and African terminology. Some of them marry Christian men or Christian women, you know, and it's unfortunate because they lose. Then the children grow up confused. And you have a household of children that growing up divided, unevenly yoked. And then a child goes down the basement one day and looks at some papers that the grandmother had and found out that they should have been being taught they were Moorish the whole time. I can't tell you how many people have come to me with that same story. That the grandparent, and when they went into the grandparents' findings, they found Korans and questionnaires and literature and, you know, sheikh documents, all of these things, because no one was brave enough. No one was tearful enough. I mean, we just act like we're so afraid, you know, and this is not the time to be afraid. And Noble Drawley is the father. He's our father of the Moorish nation. He's the one that established this, whether you like what he did or not. You know, if you don't like it, that's so what. He came here and told you weren't Negro, Black, and colored. I mean, he told you that. He told you who you were. And all of you to act like you know more than the prophet knew, well, you know, what can I tell you? You know, sometimes the children grow up and they feel like that they supersede the parent. And then they have to go back to the original teachings of the parent to find out that what you're talking about, the parent had already taught you anyway. So the bottom line is that you have to remain in your roots and go back to where you're supposed to be. And I can tell you that all these years that I've been living, every time I pick up the literature, every single time, I learn something new every single time. Whenever I'm creating a new document, I always have in mind the laws, what the prophet told us. Whenever I'm teaching, I always keep in mind that when I'm teaching the benefit of a new nation, a new era of time, another generation of Moors. The prophet said he came for the young and the yet unborn. He said the old can go if they want to. So if you want to go, you can go. Whosoever will, let them come. If you don't want to come, stay where you are. But don't drag down those of us who are here for the fight. And I love the fight. I have no problem with the fight. I don't want to fight you, but I will if I have to. I want to work to save us, because we are all we got. And we're beautiful people. Sisters, stop acting like you can't wrap your heads. I mean, my goodness, I can't tell whether you're conscious or unconscious, because all of y'all want to show your hair, and then most of the time the hair you're showing is not yours. I mean, you're putting that weave in your hair, and think about when you're putting those people's hair in your head, you're putting dead skin cells into yourself. So you're sewing in someone else's dead skin cells into your live cell. Think about that. That's some science for you. So be who you are, beautiful. We wear our hair differently. If you want to straighten your hair, there's natural ways to straighten your hair. If you want to wear your hair short, there's ways to wear it short if you want to wear it long. But you don't need to keep putting other people's hair and makeup and paint and all these things that have nothing to do with us on your face. If you wear makeup, use makeup that's complimentary to us. Stop looking like clowns, painting your face up like you're about to perform somewhere. I mean, stop wearing your clothes where your breast is all out and your behind is all out and all of that, for a show. You're putting on a show and you look unconscious. You don't look conscious. It doesn't look cute. It's unconscious. I get complimented everywhere I go, and I'm always dressed appropriately, always. So we are beautiful and regal. Don't let people take that power from you. You don't have to take your clothes off to get attention. The attention is in here. That's in your psyche and your brain. And we want to fix the mindset. We want to help you change your conditions. That's what our job is to do. I'm not here to insult anyone. I'm just here to talk about the truth, because I am truly unfiltered. I don't pretend to be. I actually am. I keep it truthfully. I keep it real. I don't care if they call it 100, 1,000, 101, whatever you want to call it. I keep it real and truthful. And any question that you want to ask me, you can ask me. I don't run from questions. I have no problem answering questions, because you can learn and I can learn from questions. If you got a question, I got an answer. If I don't have the answer for you, I will certainly find it. Prophet Noble Jolly said that he was the question and the answer, and I follow in his footsteps. I yield the floor back to you, Dr. Naila.
Let me see if there are any more questions. They were saying there was a lot of echo, so I was trying to mute myself, hoping that would help. But I saw a comment here. Let me put it up here. Blissing says, Tanzania babies have been given digital birth certificates attached to blockchain. She says, my intuition is that every bull run on crypto coins corresponds to a new blockchain babe coming on the market. What do you think about that?
Well, again, you're talking about the birth certificate, though. That's the thing. If you have to, they can't just create a birth certificate for your child. They will have to have your consent. You have to sign that. So again, you don't have to put your child into the system. And the thing is that we should have more home births, with our children. I know that the hospital has been convenient and people are afraid, and they make you afraid of having babies at home and having your births of your children at home and all of that. And so you feel like that, then they don't tell you that you can't leave. Or some of us are on what they call, I think in different places, but it's called like public assistance, where the state pays for you to have the child. So they tell you that they're not going to pay the bill if you don't sign a birth certificate. Well, literally, you can still walk out of that hospital without signing a birth certificate. And then you can challenge them trying to charge you for the birth of a child. So you don't have to be in these corners. So we don't care. Everything's on the blockchain. Everything is going to be on the blockchain. That's the future of today. But the only way your child can be on a blockchain is if you allow that to happen. You are the parent. And so you have to decide whether you want to put your child on blockchain or not by filling out a birth certificate.
I'm just looking to see if there are any more comments that need to be some are just comments, but let me see if there are any specific questions. What we do? Okay. Here's a question. I had a question on what to do about the Moors who lack integrity. They're there to put roadblocks.
All right, so Moors that lack integrity, and as I said earlier, there's not a whole lot we can do about it, because being a Moor is your birthright, and in every nation, You have people with integrity and some with not integrity. But what we have to do is not let those people stop us from the work that we have to do. And don't associate with them people. You know, the thing is that I don't associate myself with anyone who's negative or wants to bring the nation down. There is a sister right now who I think this was 2021. She has a video out that she's trying to charge me with $5 million or something. She's trying to sue me for what was the name of it? I can't even think of the name of that document. I had it on the tip of my tongue, but she's trying to come after me, you know, personally. There's a lot of people, you know, you have to wonder, why would you take the time to the way I work so hard to try to bring things together, to try to bring me down? Those are people who, in the same time of the prophet, who at the time of all prophets, there was someone who was there trying to keep the people from getting what they needed to get, which was the truth. And so you just cannot associate yourself with those people. You have to walk away with your head up high and leave them where they are. That's exactly what you have to do.
All right. Here's another question. Sheikess Bey. I hope I didn't butcher your appellation. I'm curious, why shouldn't women show their hair?
Well, one of the echo anything. Yeah. All right, so I'm not saying that women cannot show their hair, but they shouldn't show their hair as a matter of respect. When you're covering your head, first of all, our skin is the first line of defense. So let's go to that. It's the first line of defense. Your hair is skin, is the outer skirts of you. To protect you from anything, any cold, anything get into your hair, your scalp, or whatever, you should keep your head covered. That minimizes it, because anything can hit your head, fall into your hair, anything. But when you keep your hair covered, it's also a sign of respect, because it keeps your mind in focus. This V in my turban, if you can see the V, this V in my turban represents, if you can see it, I don't know, I'm kind of crooked today. My head is kind of crooked, but if you can see the V, it represents. The V in here, see that V and it coming out right there, that beautiful V, that center point represents the highest intuition, the knowledge point, the base. This V represents victorious, coming around. This circle around my head keeps my passions of my desires within the bonds of moderation. It keeps my thoughts and conscience clear. When I'm having this turbulence, I'm conscious of the things I'm doing, what I'm saying, where I am. All of this is a focal point. And so that's why women should keep their heads covered. Just keep us focused. It keeps us in tune with ourselves. Because I wrote a book, Your Hair is Your Conscious Connection to the Universe. And you all should read that, because it connects to antennas, always transmitting signals. You don't want the wrong type of signal or energy to get out there in the universe. So you should keep your head covered. You should keep your hair, you can have your hair uncovered in your household, around your family. But when you're out there in the world and into this universe, you should keep your head uncovered. I mean, keep your head covered, not uncovered. And the same thing with brothers. This is why the kufi was created, to keep brothers keeping that circle with kufi that surrounds that spectrum around your head, to keep your desires within the bounds of righteousness. You should have those on your head, or keep your number one figure on your head, your fez, your knowledge cap, which represents humanity, represents womb man, that cat. So we should all have ourselves covered, not just womb man, but man too. We should not walk out there and just let our hair, our connections, our antennas be everywhere with all these missed signals out here, making all kinds of confusion in our brain waves. We should keep ourselves protected and covered. And inside of your home, then you can let your hair out.
And the other thing I learned with regard to the hair being covered versus uncovered, one of the things for me, I get headaches, but I do know the importance of it, because your hair is antenna too. Yeah, when back years ago when I wore locks and I was a pastor, I had locks down the bra strap length, and eventually I realized I was picking up so much from just being around people that I was dealing with on a regular basis. One day I decided to just cut my locks out. It was like actually didn't cut them out. I actually had them taken out and everything. But the antenna, especially that, was these were like super coils, and I had everybody in my head.
Yes.
So, yeah, I realized I was trying to cut these people out of my hair, but you have to realize you have to protect your antenna, because
That's right.
it is a receiver. What was it?
A
Transceiver,
transmitter. Yes.
transmitter and a receiver at the,
Right.
so most of the time, like I'm on here and I don't, because I'm like, I'm in my house, I'm not outside. But tonight I decided. I mean, it's not that I don't have them, and it's just that and you have to get the right ones that won't, if you like,
Right.
folks, that because you get headaches. You know what I mean?
Learn how to wrap your turbans, and that's one of the things. When I was coming up, we had turban wrapping sessions, teaching how to wrap your turban. There's so many different ways to keep pressure off the points. And me, I like my turbans wrapped tight, but I know how to lift them off the back of the pressure and the side, different ways. And then, like you said, materials today, there's all kinds of materials that are soft, even pre-made turbans. I know I make pre-made turbans for people who I started out with women who have cancer. The Cancer Association had contacted me when they looked on my website and saw that I had head wraps, and they contacted me about making head wraps for women with cancer. And so that's how I started making my head wraps with you can put them on your head with the V's in the front, and all of that. And I always make them with the V's, and then some of them I make with circles for them, because I don't, really care if they represent whether the V represents or not. But a lot of the people, wear turbans, and just look at that. They wear turbans because now they're ill and they have to protect their heads, right? So now they're covering it because of an illness. So why even let it get to that point? Absolutely. Your hair is antennas. They're transmitters. We're connected to the universe. And that's why when I wrote that book, everybody said, Prime Minister, you took a while to write that book. And I was like, yes, because that was one of my very personal books that I wrote about my connection to the universe and my hair. And I even put in there about perming your hair and having your hair out, and all those things are in the book. I address those things because, it's important for us as women, especially melanated women, the original women, Asiatic women. It's important for us to know about our hair and the importance of it is. So why we should not walk around, like you said, transmitting and receiving all kinds of signals out there in the universe. All of a sudden you could be feeling great, and all of a sudden you feel like, what happened to me? What took place? I was fine before I left the house. You're on mute, Dr. G. You're on mute.
Picked up a bad piano, I'm saying.
Yes, you were still on mute.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid the echo that I could hear. There's a question here. Person says, forgive me, got in late. Don't know if you already stated this, but how do we rescind the birth certificate? I think that's a good question.
Yes. Okay. So let's get into the definition of rescind, because I haven't gotten to anything, but I'm going to talk about what the definition of rescind is, so we'll know exactly what rescind is. Okay. So I wrote all this information down too. Okay. So rescind is the cancellation of a contract. All right. So what you would have to do is you have to have the birth certificate. You want to ask for the original live birth certificate. You want to get a copy of that, and you cancel the contract. So you get a copy of, you're going to write cancel across that birth certificate, and then you're going to get an affidavit. If you get it from, well, I don't know if anyone else is doing it, but I'll just talk about here at the Nation. We have a affidavit of cancellation of the birth certificate. So along with the birth certificate, the original live certificate, and the cancellation affidavit, you're going to send that into the entity of where you got the birth certificate from. And also you heard me say that the District of Columbia, in that vault where they keep all those birth certificates. So we're going to address everyone who has a copy of that birth certificate to rescind that contract. And your rescission is going to be because you had no idea what you were signing when you got the birth certificate. So you want to rescind that birth certificate, and we can help you how to do that right here. It's a rescission of any contracts that you got into. You want to rescind them. You can rescind those contracts.
Okay, here's a question. Wants to know if you can address Inter-American Declaration?
Inter-American Declaration. Can you be a little more specific? I'm not really familiar with that. Inter-American Declaration. This may be a document I have never heard of yet, but I'll be sure to look it up. I've never heard of that, and I've done with a lot of law documents. I've never heard that one before.
Questions like, where can we get good turbans and learn how to wrap turbans? Where you address that. Believe it or not, this particular turban, which is velvet. I don't think you may have seen it when you were here. This is like a long tube, but I have others that are like, fabric, but this, was like wish.com, just, getting different colors. But I mean, you said you make them. I think, can you explain the dimensions with the number 9 in when you, I learned that it should be some like 108. There's like 108 inches long. It should be something divisible by 9. Do you go by that also? Because some people do.
No, what we were taught is that your turban should be between 2 to 3 yards, and the inches should be 45 to 60 inches. And the reason why is because with a 2-yard turban, you can get a nice wrap like this. If you get something like 3 yards, if you like a little bit of height, you can get the height, in the turban. The main thing when you're wrapping your turban is not everyone asks me to make a video because they say it's not really videos out there of how to wrap a Moorish turban. I think they may be 1 or 2, but I can do a live session. We can teach you. I also have head wrapping instructions that we can send you or email you on how to wrap your turban perfectly. But you want to have at least 2 to 3 yards of material. I've seen some Moors who have more, who really wrap them in layers, like you see the Eastern brothers wrap them and they still have their V's in the middle. You can do them any kind of ways like that if you want, but you need at least 2 to 3 yards. It should be 45 to 60 inches in width. So this way, the length should be this way in yardage and your inches should be in width. And that's to help you cover your crown. So you can cover your crown from the front to the back before you wrap your turban. And then a lot of sisters wrap it to the 2 together up like that. I like to do that when I want height. When you want a height, you wrap it and crisscross it together. If you want
go ahead.
Yes. If you want a more flat surface turban, you can do it by leaning on one side longer than the other and get that smooth wrap surface.
Yeah, I want to show. You have to it's all right. I want to show that this is one long
piece, tube piece. Yes,
it actually is a tube, but the point
you put on your head. Yes.
Yeah. But it does have the
V in the front.
V in the front, but then I make my own V.
Right, wrapping it around
for because I'm gonna mess it up getting it back. But I make my own V with the extra that's going around, and you can, and it to me that's an easy one. But like you said, you can go like this, you can go like this, as long as you got enough, and can make that V. But yeah, please make a video. Please make a video.
Yes, maybe and like you said, Wish.com, Amazon. Yeah. All those places have what you call the tube turbans, like she has on right now, and I have some of those too. For school, because in the morning time you can just throw them on your head and wrap it around, or even I have some of the ones that I've made that I just set on top of my head in front of the classroom. So you can do all kinds of ways with your turban. And today turbans are so popular, you can find them on all these particular sites.
I mean, they've got ones like I just. Matter of fact, I just got quickie ones that you could just put on your head, like this.
Yes.
And somewhere the point, I don't know where it is, but there's a point there. But when you put it on, you just pull the
tuck your hair in.
I know, I got to tuck my hair in, but you have like sort of like this and
right,
tuck your hair under.
All kinds. We have to probably do a session on turbans. Maybe do a session on turbans and wrapping them and talking about them and the history of turbans. That's a really pretty one. Yes, that's really pretty.
I mean, there's all kinds of things. I mean, I don't think I have the point where it's supposed to be, but there's a point on it. But these are like the quickie ones and stuff. So, that's something that can be done. This has been awesome. Anyone who
it's 10 o'clock that fast. Wow.
Yes. Look, I got blue on now, so we just change it.
Yeah,
on my hair right quick, y'all. Who wears an awesome turban that wrap? We just had the event, on Saturday, and Father Hannibal.
Yes,
Father Hannibal Bey was one of our presenters, and I always loved the way he wraps his turban. And there's always like a
yes, they call it a tail. It's the sheik tail. That's out. I remember when I taught Hannibal how to wrap a turban. I never forget teaching him.
He's got that. He's got that Although I got this on kind of crazy, but anywho,
But just before we do wrap up, though, I do wanted to put out too that so we are still looking for instructors because Dr. Jazz will have my head if I don't put it out there.
well, I had been putting it up too.
Yes, we are still looking for instructors for our online schooling for Moorish children. So please send us an email to educationformoorishchildren@gmail.com. That is education, the number 4, moorishchildren@gmail.com.
There it goes. It's running underneath.
Yes. Yes, teachers are still needed. Our school is still growing, and we want to thank everyone for their support. And let me just say, I want you all to support Dr. Nayola, because she is the only one where we can come on the platform and talk about things about Moorish affairs. Because as much as I love Roland Martin, I'm sure he don't want me to come on his show talking about Moorish affairs and not being Negro and Christians and all that, because that's, he's that Christian Negro degree. But some people come on in, they're afraid to talk about it. But we got to be more, and we can't be afraid to talk about it. So you got to support her. You have to support this platform continuously to move forward, because we have to use YouTube and Facebook and all those things. But we have to get to the point where we have our own platform where we don't have to use someone else's, so we don't have to worry about what we say. I know a lot of people don't like to bring me on because they say, "Oh, I don't know what she's about to say, what she's going to say," because she's unfiltered or raw. But you shouldn't have to be afraid to speak truth to power. You should never be afraid to speak truth to power. And when you become afraid to speak truth to power, you're still in captivity. Someone else still owns what you have to say or your thoughts, and that should never be. So just be mindful. To support Dr. Nayola, you have to support her. You have to send in donations to her and support her. You have to send in donations for the school and support us, because it's people like us, the very one of us that's tired all the time, that fall to rest in our chairs with our feet swollen, with our heads banging, that are out here fighting for the uplifting of fallen humanity. And that's us. And we're the woman. We are the real humanity. And so you gotta protect us. You gotta fight for us and with us.
Yes.
And fiat. This currency people talk about, it's not real money and all that. That's maybe true, but in this government, you have to spend fiat. So you have to spend that fiat currency in this government to get anything done. So no matter what you want to call it, send it in and support it. I just wanted to say that. You have to.
Thank you. And I just want to say that I want to give thanks to all of those, especially if you're in the chat and you took time out of your busy schedule to be at House of Reawakening Minds this past Saturday. We had an awesome event. Of course, the one that we did on the 27th of August, Prime Minister Sheikess was one of our presenters. But I want to thank you for the presentation you gave. But on this particular Saturday, we had an awesome event again. And we had, besides, Grand Sheik and myself, Grand Sheik didn't say as much as probably people would have liked in me, but we did have Dr. Botanica, Brother Dave Levy Bey, who's the both awesome naturopaths and nutritional, worked in that area. We had Father Hannibal Bey. We had Sister Empress Yesherin, aka she used to be Sharon Tracy Gale Bay. She was there. Mother was back. She was there kind of writing stuff on the board for folks. But if you know Mother Kai, she she won't be in the background. She left a lasting impression, even though she wasn't one of the main speakers. But everyone who reached back said they really, really enjoyed it. And we're looking forward to doing something again, not in 2021, but in early 2022, and where a bigger venue so we can get everybody there at the same time. But we had a full day and it was amazing. And so I'm going to say thank you all who attended, and thank you all who came to my table and got all the things that you got. It was amazing to have lighter bags when I went home. So
Absolutely.
We do appreciate that. Love you. Prime Minister, thank you so much. Anybody who's listening to this or of anyone, any Moors who are having issues with their children and, the things that were discussed today, please reach out to Grand Sheikess and be a part of what she's doing so that she could be a part of what you need.
Absolutely. We got to take care of each other. We have to, boys, we got to take care of each other. And humanity, mothers, please reach out and help one another. We have to help each other. It is truly important that we reach out to one another. You know, if we look at the news, what's going on right now, snatching children out their houses. They come into the houses, snatching them out of the houses of school, and they're injecting your children while they're in school. There are so many parents. They just in California passed the law that all of those children have to be vaccinated. So you have to protect your children. All right. And some of you all seen that It's Alive. You know, you need to check that out. I mean,
they live.
It's Alive.
Oh, okay, it's alive. All right, because they live. But yes, so thank you so much. We're gonna let you go because I'm gonna do something I don't normally do. Try to get in bed on time.
Oh, well, that will be wonderful. Don't forget to do your rebuys. I trust you was able to.
I did it.
Oh, good for you. I trust that you'll be able to talk to some of the people about that amazing opportunity.
Too. There it is running under here. Oh my, OMG, Dr. G has finally found it. Want to know more? Text, invite me.
Oh, wow. Okay, wonderful.
That's my subtle way.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited for us. I'm so excited for the nation. I'm just so excited that we are all communicating and trying to do it effectively. And I have to say, Dr. G, the next time, coming on, maybe we just want to bring, like you said, a bunch of the maybe leaders on, maybe not in, person, but on call and start talking about some of the issues and things that we could do to help our nation.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing is going to be to coming together, because I've had a few people reach out to me on entities and organizations who say that they are the head of this and the top of that and the other that. And I'm thinking everybody can't be the head. Well, anyway, you can be the head of what you're doing. You can be. But some things I just don't care to do on this platform. But I wouldn't mind facilitating conference calls or something like that, because that's just, and I know this is an awesome platform. I know folks get around this, there might be, like I said, there's almost 300, there's about 300 on here right now, between Facebook and mostly YouTube. But after tonight, 1,000 to 2,000 will have seen it by tomorrow. And so I know this platform gets around, but we just want to make sure that what we're doing is to the benefit of most, if not all.
Well, I know a lot of you want to see me and Taj together, so we will be doing something together, me and Taj, on Dr. Nyola's platform, because for some reason you all like to see me and Taj together. We have our different ways of presenting our information, but at the end of the day, we're on the same page.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to leave here now, and we thank you again so much for coming on again, and thank you for this valuable information. I'm sure that there were parents that were, they're going to be able to use this, or they're going to reach out to you if they need, more assistance with their particular situation. And the young lady that I'm talking about, I know Grand Sheikess given her something to do, and I want to see how that works out. But if it doesn't work out, I'm going to send her to you.
Absolutely. And Ty sometimes will contact me too. So we may work together on that, because we've worked together a lot of times on different situations too. So, he might contact me too if he needs to do some other things for it, because there's so much information out there. It's limited information. I mean, it's not limited, it's unlimited. And so It's all about research, right? Not the Google search engine, actual research.
Right. All right, y'all.
Be safe. So
all right.
I'm just really glad I'm here. When the ministers are coming, I just want to say, everyone, if you know the 25th chapter, I'm going to quote that as I go out, because the 25th chapter is a covenant between us and our Creator. And I think it's really important. And one thing I was taught when I was coming up, that when you never leave your home without praying and saying this 25th chapter of the Holy Quran. So I'm going to recite that, if you don't mind, as we go out. Ye are the children of one Father, provided for by his care, and the breasts of one mother have given you suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brother, where peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thy own blood. If thy brother is in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his cares be continued to you all in your love to each other. Islam. Assalamu alaikum, Moors. Be safe in your travels.
Islam.
Dr. G. Really? Who's she?
Yeah, that's me.
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 Dr. G. Really? Who's she?
Yeah, that's me.